All right, so today what we're going to do is we're going to create an ES6 application that displays everyone that's in our classroom and where they consider their hometown to be. The goal of today is not to create a React app from scratch. The goal of today is to create more or less the components of a React app from scratch. And then starting tomorrow, we're going to throw it all out the window and use something called Create React App, which will give us all the basis and all the underlyings of everything React related. So we're going to create a folder real quick called no create React app. We're going to cd into there. And from there, we're going to run through the npm init setup. So just like you can make any folder a git folder, I'm going to make this particular folder an npm folder. So I'm going to do npm init. And this is going to basically walk me through like a setup wizard to set up all the files that I'm going to need in order to run my application. I'm going to keep most of the defaults. The name I'm going to keep the same. The version I'll keep the same. Description, I can type in something here if you'd like. You can leave it blank as well. You'll see what this is doing in just a second. The entry point I will keep as, instead of index.js, I'm going to do source/index.js. Because source, that folder is going to be important when we get to React. Test command, probably fine, that's probably fine, whatever. Is this okay? Yes. Now, if you look inside of here, all it created was a package.json file. So when we take a look inside of here, this package.json file is more or less kind of like a blueprint, kind of like a manifest of what's going on inside this particular file, inside this particular repo. This is the name of the file, this is the version number, there's a description, this is where the main entry point into the application is, and then these are all the different scripts that we have available to us. So we'll just do hello. Run npm run hello. It just runs, it says hello back to me. So this scripts thing right here is essentially just like when you were running Rails DB migrate Rails something, like when you ran some sort of command, like those were custom commands that were pre-built in. Similarly here, we can create our own custom scripts. So whenever we run the test, npm run test, it's going to echo no test specified and then exit out. But later we're going to replace this with our actual test command. And so I just wrote a custom script that says, whenever I run npm hello, it's just going to echo hello out to the screen. That's what I did here. When I ran npm hello, all it says was a small little hello that came out. So first of all, let's create a source folder. And inside of there, we're going to create an index.js file. We're going to create a person class. So class person. So I'm going to write this side by side in Ruby and in JavaScript, just so you can kind of get an idea. I'll just write index.rb, and I'll just save it inside of here. Same thing. As you can see, there's so many similarities between like object-oriented JavaScript and object-oriented Ruby. The only difference that we see so far is this opening curly brace and the closing curly brace to see where things end and start. Similarly here, I have an end to close out this person, and I don't have an opening one. They just inherently know that everything in the middle is like that. Next, every single person in this room has a name, and they have a hometown of where they consider themselves to be from. So I have a constructor. It's going to take a name and a hometown. Similarly, if you were talking about Ruby, it's just def initialize with name and hometown. At name equals name. At hometown equals hometown. These two things are synonymous. Like they're very, very similar. They're just small little syntactical differences. Then I have a method called say hello. Takes in no params. I'm just going to do return. So the say hello is just going to return out to the screen, like let's say John from Chicago. Similarly here, if I had another one, it'd be def say hello. and just be return name from Chicago. Oops, from hometown. You kind of see the similarities are, there's a little bit more code here, but you can kind of see it's very similar left and right. And finally, we have something that it does not translate into Ruby. So we have render. So inside of JavaScript, inside of like React specifically, I can't speak for all JavaScript. There are two methods that you're going to need in every single class. You're going to need a constructor. It's basically like, what do I need in order to set things up? And then you're going to need a render. What am I showing off to the screen? So this is what you need in order to initialize a person. You can write whatever methods you need to in the middle. And at the very bottom here, this is what's coming out to the screen. Inside of Ruby, you don't have that same thing where it's like come out to the screen. That's not something that Ruby is really able to do. So that's where like this doesn't translate 100%. So let's just break this down a little bit further. Let me create an object real quick. Const John equals new person. John from New Jersey. John, say hello. John dot render. All right. So I've created a person class with a constructor function. The constructor function is similar to the Ruby's like initialize, where I pass in parameters and that they're available within the entire class by appending it with this dot in the front. Similarly, when I have @name in the front, I have access to @name everywhere, and @hometown, I have access to that everywhere within this particular class. In our case, we need two parameters or properties inside of Ruby on Rails. This is called parameters. Inside of React and JavaScript, it's called props. Parameters and props are identical. They're just called two different things. So we need a name and a hometown. I need to pass those two things in, John and New Jersey over here. The this.name is the same thing as @name. And we have a say hello function that just returns my name and my hometown. Finally, we have a render function down here. And this render function declares a constant variable that's not going to change. Every single time that I call render, I'm going to define it once and that's it, which is the equivalent to this.sayHello. So it's going to execute the say hello method attached to this particular class, which is person. So that's going to return to me John from New Jersey, which saves into text. And then the inner HTML is going to shove, I'm going to shove John from New Jersey into there. All right, so now you may be wondering, like, how do I get this off the ground? Like, how do I get this to actually run? So first thing we need is actually a server. So create React app will give all of this to you for free, but we don't have that today. So we're going to go to the npm website, npmjs.org. We're going to find ourselves some sort of npm package that will allow us to have a server. Luckily, we talked about it this morning. It's called HTTP server. And it says a simple zero configuration command line HTTP server. So it looks like all that we really need to do is bring it into our application. So I'm going to run something kind of like when we were running gem install whatever. We're going to do npm install. So instead of gem install, it's now npm install. We're going to name the server HTTP server. Then remember you were doing gem install pry, gem install whatever. Now it's npm install HTTP server -- save. This -- save is important because it's going to save it into your particular repository. You can kind of see it relies on a bunch of other things underneath the hood. It relies on colors, EC static, HTTP proxy. I don't know what all this stuff is, but it's similar to gems. Gems have other dependencies underneath the hood. Now, if you jump back over to your package.json, you'll see that something was added under this tiny little thing called dependencies. You can kind of think of this as like your gem file. In gem file, you just kind of list all your gems that you need by doing gem pry, gem faker, or something like that, and then you just bundle install. Similarly here, the package.json lists all of your dependencies. It says, I'm required to have my HTTP server node package, any version above 0.11.1. So I'm going to add one more script. So instead of this echo hello here, I'm going to have a start, which is my very specific thing for, it's going to be a specific script I'm going to run in order to start this particular file. It's pretty simple. I'm just going to run HTTP server with .source. So whenever I run npm run start, it's going to actually alias it just to say HTTP server .source. Let's see what we get. So npm run start. Let's see if this runs. All right. Something cool about this is that it's running on 127.0.0.1, which is localhost, but it's also available for anyone on my Wi-Fi to 10.03.155. So Raymond, if you want to actually go to 10.0.3.155 :8080, you'll be able to see what I see on the screen. 10.0.3.155 :8080. Yep, and you can kind of see, take a look over here. Like even Raymond just visited the website, and you can see that it actually recorded his particular request. So I can see that he made a GET request using Mozilla 5.0 on this particular type of machine using, and then his response that he got back was a not found, right? Is that what you see on the screen?
Well, I put the wrong port, and then I put the right one after. I put it 808 instead of 880.
Okay, that's fine.
But now it works, and then.
Fantastic.
And I'm actually on Chrome. I don't know what it says.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Well, we're not going to dig into that right now.
Yeah.
So that is the wrong thing. Okay, so it is so this is a good question. Why does Chrome and Internet Explorer put Mozilla 5.0 in the user agent? Let's find out. I do not care. Okay, the localhost 8080. All right, so as of right now, there's nothing here. And if you take a look over here, it says, when we run index.js, it says render. When you render this out to the screen, it says it's looking for a document body with HTML. But if you can take a look inside of here, we actually don't have a index.html thing to actually go for. So let's create a new file really fast called index.html. We'll make this an HTML document. Inside of an HTML document, we have a head. We also have a body. What goes inside of the head and what goes inside the body?
Navigation goes inside of the head.
Okay.
Body is typically like sort of the functionality of that page.
Reverse those two. So the navigation actually goes inside the body. The body is what shows up on the page, and the head is like all of like the external scripts that you need in order to bring stuff in. So let's, I'm going to leave the head alone for right now. I just want something to show up on the page. So I'll create one that just says hello world and close it out. All right, so if I refresh this page here, you can kind of see there's my hello world. But there's an issue because I'm not seeing this particular bit of JavaScript code in there. And that's because I haven't added my script tag. So I'm going to add my script to the very bottom. Script source equals index.js and close it out. So by putting it at the bottom of the body, I'm ensuring that the entire HTML document is going to load. And once it loads, I'm going to then, because I'm calling it right here on line 19, at this point, it's going to say John from New Jersey. So if I refresh, don't embarrass me. There it is. All right, so it says hello world, and once everything loads, it calls this render function here on line 19. I'm calling it directly. It's looking inside the entire document, looking for the body, and adding some more HTML, just the text that's showing up here. All right, so let's create a quick script for everybody inside of our class, and then we will render all of that out to the screen. So let's say const students in class. We're going to go with, so we have Aaron, we have Annie, we have Raymond, we have Alex, we have Sharif, we have Leanna. That's all I see right now. All right. How do I iterate over all of these people in JavaScript, create new persons, and render them out to the screen? So again, I want to iterate over all of these names. And I want to actually, oops. I probably need to, I probably do need a for loop. I'm going to actually make this a giant hash. All right, so Aaron, where do you consider your hometown?
Chicago.
Chicago. Danny, same?
Yep.
Okay. Amy, where do you consider your hometown?
It's called Vallejo. Vallejo.
It's still a hash, or what is it? Is it not a
This is an object. Alex? What's that? Chicago. Sharif, where do you consider your hometown?
I'm not sure. Everywhere. California. Everywhere, yeah.
Deanna, where do you consider your hometown?
Galesburg.
All right, so I have a JavaScript object here. Just to get yourself, I mean, everyone knows inside of Ruby, it's just students in class each do student, and then you can iterate over each one of those. But using this, I want to get everyone warmed up back to ES6. How do I iterate over this object to get the key value and insert it into this new person and render them out to the screen? It's a for loop, okay.
Where you start at 0 and then you end at
Okay,
students in class.
that works for an array. It does
Oh,
not
that's
work
right.
for this. Does
Sorry,
not
it's
work
not.
for an object. So let's just Google it. All right, so we'll just iterate over JavaScript object. First thing that shows up, fantastic. How do I okay, let's just take a look at this. For in, let's see, for var key and p. Cool. Let's take a look at that. All right, so with this, it's probably for let student name in students in class new const person, no, let person equal new person with student name and students in class with student name, and then person dot render. Like again, I created a JavaScript object with the keys being your first names and the values being where the city that you consider to be your hometown. I'm going to iterate over it. So let student name and students in class. So this keeps track of all the keys. So Aaron, Danny, Raymond, Alex, etc. So I'm going to create a new person object from here, which I'm passing in your name and then the value of where you consider to be your hometown. So if I do students in class, which is this giant object, and I pass in Aaron, I'm going to get back Chicago. If I do the same thing with Leanna, I'm going to get back Galesburg. And because I'm changing it every single time, I'm going to keep that as a let, and I'm going to render that person out to the screen. So if all goes well, and I go back over here, this will no longer read John from New Jersey, but it will read everyone else. Let's see. All right, so we have Aaron from Chicago, Danny from Chicago, Raymond from Vallejo. So we altered the inner HTML to look like this. Maybe we can make it look a little nicer. Maybe that. Did this work? Nope, it just adds me an extra space. Oh, whatever, it looks a little nicer. Okay. All right, so at this point, what we want to do is we've initted our brand new Node app. We've gone through all of our packages. We've created a custom script. We've installed HTTP server as a dependency that we need. Let's make sure that the code that we're writing is acceptable JavaScript code. So I'm going to install another npm library called ESLint into here. So I'm going to run npm install ESLint. It's a little bigger. -- save. The -- save is going to save it directly into this particular repository. Now, the thing you'll notice about gem install versus npm install is that npm has a lot of stuff that it's installing behind the scenes. So just because I installed one thing, it's taking forever. When you run create React app, when you run npm install, there's a cute little comic that I'll send out tomorrow that you'll understand a little bit more. Oh boy, my npm package is here. You'll understand this a little bit more as we continue on. But what you'll notice is that whenever you install anything with npm, even that one tiny little, is this still installing? Oh, it finally finished. So there's a cute little comic, the npm package delivery is here. And so it opens the door and then gets smushed with a whole bunch of things. You'll notice that one particular npm package will rely on at least 10 to 15 others, and you have to install all of those at once. So you'll see I've added an npm dependency called ESLint. So whenever I am installing this, whenever anyone is downloading my app and running this, I need ESLint above version 4.18.2. If you take a look, there's a brand new folder that popped up out of nowhere called Node Modules. This was not around before, just now, right? This is brand new that I've seen. And if you open this, there are all of these different folders that are inside of this. And what this means is all of these different folders inside of here is what ESLint requires. And when you were running this and you were waiting forever for all of these things to install, like it took maybe 30, 45 seconds for this whole thing to install, what it did was it reached out to npm and downloaded a binary version of all these node modules. So ESLint requires things like chalk. I don't know what chalk is, but it's a node package, and then all of this code underneath it needed to be downloaded. And what this does is that, like I said earlier this morning, instead of putting all of the weight on the server, I'm now downloading everything so that whenever I load my particular app, all of this extra stuff is loaded into your browser. Your browser is taking on the majority of the work. So I have all the binary versions right here, and I'm loading it directly into Chrome. And then Chrome can take care of everything from there on out. That's why Chrome is starting to take a lot longer to load pages, why it's taking up so much bandwidth on your machine. Let's see. Now we're going to run this tiny little command called node modules /bin/ESLint. So I'm reaching inside the node modules, this particular thing, reaching inside of ESLint. Where's ESLint? And inside of there, they have a bin with an ESLint init. So this is how I'm going to set up all of my ESLint stuff. And again, this will all disappear tomorrow when we use create React app. So I'm going to initialize it right here. I'm going to use, let's answer some questions. Am I using ECMAScript 6 features? Yes, I am. Am I using ECMA's ES6 modules? I am. I'm going to run it in the browser. Do I use common.js? I don't know what that is. Am I using JSX? Nope. I'm going to use spaces. I use single quotes. I use Unix. Do I require semicolons? Sure, I will require semicolons. All right, so this is, what format do you want your config file to be in? Let's run JSON. And then you can kind of see that this particular file was entered inside of my create React app. this extra file right here. And these are the rules that they're trying to follow at this particular point. I'm basically going to run Rubocop against my stuff by running node modules /bin/ESLint against all of my stuff inside of source, and we'll see what kind of syntax and known errors we have. All right, so we found a whole bunch of errors. It says expected indentation of 4 spaces, but found 2, missing a semicolon. So your job is to fix all of these things right over here. But obviously, it kind of sucks to keep typing in this thing every time you want to run against every single time you want to run the linter. So I'm going to create a custom script over here. Maybe I'll run test. Maybe I'll get rid of this. Actually, I'll call this lint. So at this time, I can write npm run lint. And I'll get that exact same thing as I saw before. We have 18 errors and that we do have to fix. All right. Let's see. Is there anything we can fix really fast? Missing semicolon on 3, 4, 8, and 17. That's something that we can fix very quickly. 3, 4, 8, 17. Okay. Let's see if we can lower the count. All right, now we're down to 14 errors, and then you can kind of continue to fix these up as you go along. You can also just turn some of the things off. So I really hate the comma dangle one. Maybe I'll do rules. Inside of rules, maybe I'll add something called comma dangle. And I will shove that to be 0. It's 1 for on, 0 for off. If you want to turn it on, just turn it to 1. If you want to turn it off, just turn it to 0. All right, one final thing before we jump into testing is that you can kind of see that this particular file is no longer single responsibility. I'm getting all the students. I have a class person inside of here, and then I'm iterating. Like, that's doing a little bit too much. So I'm going to instead create a separate class called person.js. And you'll notice that I am using a capital P to name my files. Capital P is to basically tell yourself that this is going to be a class of some sort. This index.js will remain lowercase. The capital P means that it's a custom class that I'm writing. I'm going to grab all of this, get rid of it, and dump it inside of here. And the issue that you're going to have to start memorizing, unfortunately, is you need an export default of person at the bottom. Export default person basically says, I've created a class person, and when I want to use it outside of the class, I have to do export default of person, meaning I'm going to, whenever anybody else wants to use it outside of this thing, I'm going to export this whole object out to them. And then inside of here, I'm just going to do import person from person. So it's no longer Rails where you don't need to require relative anything anymore. It's actually 2 extra steps. One, you have to import everything, which is the equivalent to require relative. And 2, you need to export default of whatever you want to have people have access to outside. So let's take a look. Let's run npm run start. Same thing as Rails server. All right, we're here on 8080. Let's refresh the page and see what we get. All right, everything disappeared, which is bad. So let's inspect and see what we get. And you can kind of see there's a 404 unexpected identifier. The main issue that I'm seeing here is it's not importing my person correctly. And if you Google around that, you're going to need to add another dependency called Babel. Like it's just not like import is something that's kind of annoying. It's something that's built into Babel into a later version that we don't have access to at this particular point. Let's not worry about that for now, and just know that it's this particular type of code will work when you get to create React app in like 17 hours. Pushing on, we need to test our code using Mocha Chai, which is similar to RSpec and Ruby. So we're going to create a similar test file. So for every single bit of code that we have, we're also going to have a bit of test data. So I'm going to do index.test.js. So instead of doing like index_spec.rb, it's index_text.js. So I'm going to grab all of this. I'm going to import Mocha from Mocha, import Chai from Chai, import person from person.js. Now you'll notice that this one is a file that I wrote that's relative to where I am. And these are two libraries that you would have to install separately. It'd be npm install mocha-save, npm install chai-save. And that would save it inside of the package.json. Now let's take a look at what we have inside of here. Actually, let's just run the, let's just see if this test runs. Installed Mocha. Going to install Chai. And let's run npm run test. And it's broken. And it turns out we have more and more dependency issues that we need to set up. And we didn't set up all the configuration for Mocha Chai, even though it's inside of our dependencies and stuff like that. And all of this pain is to basically show you that we're going to start using a generator tomorrow called Create React App that basically takes away all of this stuff where we don't need to constantly npm install. We don't need to keep adding scripts, and we don't need to wire everything up. It comes built in for free. We're going to do that tomorrow. But today, I want you to take a look through this curriculum. Let's take a look right here. There are going to be 4 challenges for today, each dealing with a different aspect of what we just covered. So the first one is just npm, ES6 Dragons, and Mocha. npm basically tests, can you install a package on your particular app that you clone down? You can ignore everything up until release 2. Yeah, so just ignore release 1. We don't need NVM and Node. I just put that in there for just in case you haven't downloaded it correctly on the first day of class. So you're going to start at release 2, and basically it's like, can you get an npm server, like, or an npm package saved into your repository and run it? That's pretty much it. ES6 is basically saying, using ESLint, can you transpose all of the code that used to, like the old version with the var and like old version of JavaScript, can you translate that into ES6 and make everything pass? Same thing with ES6 Dragons. And then Mocha, your job is just to run the tests and make everything pass.